Alright guys, this one's for Wednesday, today. Wednesdays, more or less, y'all get to know a little bit more about me. So, me and my wife had a discussion. She told me I'm allowed to tell you guys this. So, the first Christmas, I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time. She was my girlfriend. We went over to her sister's house for Christmas. And everybody else was there. We were kind of like the last ones that showed up. And I remember her dad went in. I went in behind them. He sat across the table. And I sat in front of him. And we were having this little conversation. And then he turned around and stretched back, yawned, and went, ho, ho, ho. I turned around without having a filter between the brain and the mouth and said, don't talk about your daughter that way. Immediately, both hands covered my mouth. I scooted my chair back, just about to stand up, and both her brothers, all three of her brothers, came up on me, put their hands on my shoulders and my back, and said, welcome to the family. I thought they were fixing to rip me from limb. But apparently my wife didn't like that first Christmas because everybody picked on her after that. So, yeah. That was our first Christmas together. I am a horrible, horrible husband for not having that filter. Honey, all I can say is, I'm sorry, but it's a great story. I can always tell that story and get a chuckle out of everybody. So, sorry, Puddin'. But yeah, that's the first Christmas we had. But as far as I go, I grew up in a town in Arkansas, or Arkansas, as some people call it. Us local folks in Arkansas pronounce it Arkansas. And I lived in Pine Bluff, Little Rock, and Hot Springs. So I bounced around a little bit. Grandparents lived, they had a little farm. We'd go out, Grandpa would be plowing, raising like corn and squash, okra, peas, carrots, if I remember correctly. And it was either, I think he mostly did watermelons, but there was a few times he did pumpkins. But I mean, they had their own little garden, so we learned how to do things like that. They had chickens, and I remember some mornings I had to go out to the chicken coop and grab the eggs, and sometimes Grandma would come out there with me to make sure I didn't get hurt. But you know, we learned. Farm fresh stuff is 10 times better than anything in a can, jars, anything like that. And I wish I lived out in the woods to where I could grow. my own stuff. And hopefully God will give that to me one day. But right now, it's not in my deck of cards. But it will be someday. Someday soon, I'm hoping. But anyway, so I had a learning disability. Later we found out it was dyslexia. And for people that do not know what dyslexia is, some people see words jumbled up. Some people saw and was. Reversed. So little things like that. Sometimes letters are missing out of words, so things don't make sense to people with dyslexia. There's all kinds of forms of dyslexia. I think there's like 15 different versions of it. Well, little did I know, apparently I've got one of the worst ones. In 2008, I got cracked in the head with a 3-ton steel plate off a bench press. It's called a ram plate. That put me on the floor for about 10 minutes. And after that, I get bad migraines. And when I get my bad migraines, I would text my wife to let her know, not feeling too well, I'm going to be driving slow home. But here's the kick. I would text her backwards. Don't ask me how I did it, but I do that from time to time. Don't know. But when I have those migraines, I don't remember that day. From the time that migraine kicked in full blown, I don't have memory after that. So there's a lot of times I drove home not knowing how I got home, and woke up the next morning in my bed, and my wife's there, and she's like, "You feeling better?" I'm like, "I was at work yesterday, or I was at work 5 minutes ago. How did I get home and in bed?" She's like, "No, you came home with a migraine." So, yeah, she's been pretty freaked out about stuff like that. So, yeah, that's a little part of my history there. Something that you got to deal with. Took me a year. The migraines put me on my butt for a year before I could tolerate them enough to where I could move around without having too many problems. So I have a constant buzz inside my head. So yeah, fun games. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. You guys have a good day. Remember, God loves you. And please pray more. Pretty please. With snow on top.